Hey guys, it's Josh from Off-Road, and today I'm going to show you how to install TMR Customs universal transmission mount. I'm going to install this on my Jeep TJ with the MV3550 and the 241 transfer case. Before I do, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check us out on CardinalOffroad.com for all your parts and accessories, and make sure you follow my build. So here's a close-up of all the parts that comes with the Crossmember kit. And like I said, this is a universal kit, so this is not for the 241, this is not for the 231, this is not for the 300. It doesn't matter. I think they actually make one for the 300 if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to get on their website check, but this is pretty much a universal kit that you can kind of build yourself and put together however you want as far as when you get underneath the Jeep, how you want that crossmember to go. So this doesn't have to go perfectly straight. You can mount these at angles. It just depends on how your setup is going and what you need to do. So the kit's nice. Everything comes, it's got notches. So if you are going to mount it straight across, you don't have to really notch anything. You will have to cut some tubing off depending on the width of your frame. But we'll get to that. So for starters, all the parts, you got 3 pieces of tubing. These two are exactly the same. They are notched on one end and they're flat on the other. Then you have a bigger piece of tubing that these will actually slide into, just like so. And this is what makes it really nice because it's going to be very easy. We will put this up there. First I'll do some measurements, but we'll cut this, we'll put this up there, and you don't have to cut it precisely, so we can leave, maybe cut it here and then you can move it in and out. So it's going to make it really nice, really easy. So you have that piece, it's adjustable. Next piece you have is a piece that will actually mount to your transmission. Now if you have a transmission like the MV3550 that's had 4 holes, they tell you to add a piece of metal to that. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this. What I think I'm going to do is just use a piece of 3/16 or 1/4 inch and mount that to the transmission, a flat piece, and then weld it to this. I'm not sure yet, but that's my plan. But if you do use this piece, it's notched out here on the ends. That will fit on there just like that. And then you will drill your holes and mount this piece to the transmission. You will not use your factory transmission mount. You will get rid of that, throw it in the trash, it's gone. Next thing you have are 2 bushings. I already pushed the bushings in there. They have an insert as well. That's for these bolts to go through. These will mount on the ends like that. Make sure you have your greaser down, or at least accessible. And then you have 4 tabs that will go on the end. Bolt will go through there and these will weld to the frame. So let's go ahead, we know what the pieces are, let's go ahead and get underneath the Jeep and figure out the width and then start tacking some stuff into place. So what I'm going to do is actually run the cross member from right about here, and then it's going to go at an angle over to here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a piece of 3/16 or 1/4 inch. I haven't decided yet. Unless I can use the stock plate that kind of bolts here and then it comes up here where your factory transmission mount is. If I can use that somehow, I will. But my thought is to bolt a piece of metal here, and then the tubing will actually be going at an angle like this, and then I'll just weld that to that, and that'll work out really good. The reason I want my tubing in this area is because this is the highest point between the transmission and transfer case. So it's about a 1 inch clearance compared to down here. So I'm going to go ahead, I measured between that length, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut it down. Now I don't want to cut exact, and I'll show you that here in a minute on your tubing. I just want to cut a little bit to where I have room to slide those in and out. So let's go ahead and cut the tubing down, and then we'll get everything tacked into place. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing this is so these are about 36 inches. So I want to cut about 6 inches, give or take, somewhere around there off. You don't want to go and just take that off one tube. So you don't want to make this and cut it 6 inches. You want to divide that number. So if I'm cutting 6 inches, I want to divide that by 2 because I have 2 pieces of tubing, 3 inches. So I want to cut 3 inches off each one. You want to keep these even. You don't want to cut one real short, one real long. You want to get as much tubing in here as possible, and then that way you also have plenty of room to move these in and out. So you want to make sure you cut a little bit at a time. You don't want to cut it too short to where you are only in there for like a half inch or something like that, or worse yet, you cut it too short and then you have no room to move this. So let's go ahead. We're going to mark these and then we will cut them. Okay, so I cut one side down. I still left a little bit of room there that way I can put a little bit of weld on the inside there. But as you can see now, it's angled. I just kind of measured to figure out which angle I need it to be at. So I'm going to go and tack this into place, and then we'll tack our tubing into place. Kind of give you guys an idea of where I'm going with this. So I just got it leaned up against the frame right there, and then next what I'll do is I'll go ahead and tack this side in, the tabs, and then I'll tack the tubing into the bushing. And then once I get that into place and this tubing is where I want it, I'll go ahead and figure out how I'm going to bolt it to the transfer case and transmission. Okay, so I went ahead and took the cross member from underneath the Jeep. I've got everything tacked together. I got the tabs tacked together, or tacked underneath the Jeep. Now, on the tabs underneath the Jeep, I tried to tack on both sides, and that way when I weld underneath the Jeep without these in there, they won't want to go in and out. So what I'm also going to do is take a measurement on the inside and just kind of watch as I weld, make sure that that's not going in or out real bad. So I went ahead and tacked these into place. Now when you tack these into place, you want to measure this and try to get it somewhat even. That way you're not having this tube in like a 1/4 inch and then this tube in 6 inches. So the next thing we want to do is I'm going to take these bushings out, and then I'm going to fully weld the tubing over here, around here, and then over here. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to weld the tabs underneath the frame, and then we'll be able to bolt this back up. Alright, so next I am going to weld these tabs underneath the Jeep. Now what I did is I put a socket and some washers in between there to fill the gap up. And there is my light. And then I put a clamp on it And the reason I did that way when I weld this, these tabs won't move around on me. And then when I go put the engine or the transmission crossmember back in, it'll slide back into place. So it's a good idea to do something like this. Like I just, I used the socket and some washers. It doesn't matter what it is. You just don't want these tabs as you weld them to move in and out on you. Alright, so once we've got everything welded up, next we want to put our bushings in. The biggest thing you want to make sure though is you remember to let this stuff cool down. It'll just melt these bushings like nothing. So you want to make sure your cross members cool down, but you also want to make sure your brackets on the frame are cooled down as well, because this will actually be touching those when you put it in underneath the frame or underneath the transmission. So all you're going to need to put these in is your rubber or plastic mallet. I prefer one of those just because sometimes you use a metal one, it might kind of chew the ends up on your bushing. All right, so after everything is cooled down, I waited till the next day just to play it safe, and I wasn't in a hurry anyways. So everything is cooled down. I went ahead and this is what I've came up with. So I got a piece of cardboard, traced the bolt holes on it, and the width of what the stock transfer case mount was, transmission mount was, and then I just kept cutting till I got the angle right. What I'm gonna do is take this off and then trace this on the stock mount, and then I'll cut it, and then my thought is I'll bolt that up and then weld that in place, and then it'll be easy for me because then I don't have to make anything up. Alright, so here's what I did. So I took that cardboard template, and obviously where the holes were that I marked, I put the bolts through there and then marked straight across. So now I'll cut this, and then I will be able to mount this piece to the transmission and then weld. This right here is where my transmission cross member will be running. Alright, so I messed up, and I even knew this before I did this. I don't even know what I was thinking, but this will not work with the 241. So what I've seen some guys do, what I've read, is they'll actually put spacers in here, because what happens is that 241 sticks down further and it hits up here. So by probably close to a ½ inch, I'd say. So yeah, so if you're doing this and you're not trying to get a flat skid plate, you'll have to put some spacers in here, and then you might be okay, because if you put spacers in here, this is going to stick down further. So I don't know what the solution to that is, if you can run like a 241 transfer case mount or not. I'm not sure on that one, but what I'm going to do is just get a piece of 1/4 inch flat and go ahead and trace this same shape, kind of like this, out on that, and then I'll use that. But just so you know, you can't use the 231. You can't use this mount, the transmission mount, with the that you use with 231 for the 241, because the 241 sits down lower. So. Alright, so this is what I came up with. So this is the piece I cut out. I drilled my holes, and then Welded that to the cross member, and then what I'm going to do, weld top and I weld the bottom. But what I'm going to do is make some little gussets, almost like a triangle. So it'll probably start down here and then go up, and it'll kind of be notched around the tubing. That way, because where these welds are, that's just going to want to bend right there. So that'll strengthen that. I'm going to put one there and then put one on the other side, and I am done. So getting close, and it's looking really good. Alright, so here's the finished product. Like I said, I made these gussets down the sides. Did that on both ends. And then that'll keep this piece from moving. I was going to do a 1/4 inch, but I just did 3/16, which should be plenty strong enough. So I'm going to let this cool down, and then I'm going to prime it and paint it.